Hi everybody, Andi Kravljaca here, and this is Q&A Part 5. Alright, first question. Hambreus asks, what country are you from? Well, Hambreus, that's a tougher question to answer than you may realize. I was born in a country called Yugoslavia, and the country no longer exists. But of course, since when I left it in 1992, because of the vagaries of civil war and so on, that was still what it was called, I'd still say that that's where I'm from. Geographically, though, the place where I was born, Sarajevo, is in the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina today, but I feel equally at home in all 6 of the former Yugoslav republics. Now you know. Milan asks, I've seen you're in the band Aeon Zen, and the other band members are from the UK, so do you live in the UK now? No, Milan, I don't. I still live in Stockholm, Sweden, where I ended up in July of 1992, after escaping the civil war we mentioned earlier, and through the high-tech wizardry of the internet, we met up and we do music by exchanging files and projects over the internet and meet up when it's time to play live. Tekken020 asks, where and how did you learn to speak English so well? And Metalones says, I'd like to know how you speak English so well. You're Swedish, aren't you? I expect you to have a thick Swedish accent, but your English is totally rid of any accent at all. Well, thank you guys for recognizing that. That's a labor of hard work, and it's something I'm very proud of. In fact, recently someone introduced me on stage as the sad-eyed boy from Sarajevo and said that the most impressive thing about me was not my voice, but it was my command of the English language. And for that, I'm very proud. Thank you, Eric. Now, what actually happened is my father is a professor of the English language, so I'm cheating a little bit. I guess I'm a native speaker in that way because my father made the decision when I was very little to bring me up bilingual. And so I have always spoken English and only English with my father, which is something which if I ever had a kid, I would do as well because it's been such an advantage through life that I can't even tell you about it. Thank you so much for recognizing it and for asking. Next question. Barbara asks, 1. How many languages do you speak? And 2, when you're thinking, what language do you think in? Well, here's another way that those civil wars have added to my resume. The thing is, these days, I can write on my resume that I speak Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, and so on, but of course back in the day that all used to be one language. It was called Serbo-Croatian or Serbo-Croat, so I would count that as one language. And some people will debate me on this, but I'll say that these are dialectal differences. It's pretty much the same thing as truck versus lorry, pavement versus sidewalk, gas versus petrol. There are some very slight differences, but you'd be hard-pressed to find evidence that it's a completely separate language. So I'm just going to call it Serbo-Croat, and then Swedish, and of course English. I do speak a smattering of school German, having studied it for 5 Jahre, and I do speak un poquito español after studying it for a couple of years in school. There was a period of my life where I spoke some High Elvish, my Govanan Melonin, but I don't remember very much of it these days. When I think and dream, I do it in English. I have done that all my life. My inner monologue is in English. When I stub my toe or hammer my thumb, I will say ow and swear in terms easily understood by any Englishman or American. So that would be the answer to that question. Thank you very much for asking. Now, Aurea asks, as a singer with a good range, do you care for your voice? Do you rest your voice? Practice breathing techniques? Drink honey? Things that will help before a show or video. Now, I covered this topic slightly in a previous video, and I'll link to that up here. I really don't have any practice regimen. I don't know what I'm doing. I am not a singer. If you want to see some real singers, go to the subreddit /r/singing on reddit.com. These people talk about soft palate and mask and head voice and chest voice and mixed voice and the ranges and baritone. And I don't know what any of that means. This is just what happens when I open my mouth. I don't have our warm-up technique or warm-up regimen. I don't know what you're supposed to drink to make it feel better. I've heard myths saying one way, myths saying it another way. I try to common sense my voice, which pretty much means don't yell just before you go on stage. I try to drink things that I think are good for me. I've heard you're supposed to stay away from tea, so I try to make it like herbal tea. Music question. James asks, I was wondering what DAW are you using and what kind of mic you use for your guitar and Vox. And Anon asks, what do you think of Cubase, Studio One, Logic, and Reaper? Now, this subject is covered quite extensively in a previous video I made, which is the Studio Rig Rundown, and I will link to that up here in the corner, so please click that link if you want to know more. I'll say the short version is I use Cubase. I have done that since Cubase VST32, so I'm an avid Cubase user. I use a Sontronics STC3X condenser microphone, and I would say that whatever digital audio workstation, which is what DAW stands for, you use, just use the one you're comfortable with. They're very equivalent products. It's like saying, should I buy a Ford or a Chevrolet? It pretty much just comes down to brand loyalty, to what you're used to and what you can get a good deal on right now. James asks, what softwares do you use to record the videos you upload to YouTube? Because I try really hard to record many videos, but my audio quality is always poor. I'd appreciate if you could give me some little tips on that. Now, one thing I bet you haven't tried, James, is using an actual microphone. What I'm talking into right now is not the microphone on the camera. I'm actually using my singing mic, the STC3X, and I'm singing, or actually speaking into that right now. And what I'll do is record that in Cubase and actually mix and master that track in Cubase to give it a nice crisp feel, reduce the noise, equalize the volumes, and so on. And then I'll sync that up to the video track in my video software, which is DaVinci Resolve. And that's what comes out in the track you're listening to right now. It's also where I add the music in the background, which you're listening to right now, which is the song Coast of Gold, first single from the new Thought album. Do check it out. Now, Albanian Trash asks, hey man, this is gonna sound odd, but I gotta know, I love your hair. I've been trying to grow mine like that for years and it just hasn't worked. If you don't mind, could you please tell me what you did? Please don't leave out details to get your hair like that. Thanks. Are you serious? This hair, I don't get a lot of comments about my hair which are positive in the least. This rapidly thinning, spaghetti thin kind of wisp of stuff that still happens to be attached to my head in a smaller amount by each passing day is not too much to be proud of. I think James May will best describe my hair regimen.
Do you actually do anything to your hair?
Well, I wash it occasionally.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I do as well. I just wash my hair, and this is what happens. But thank you so much for asking. Now, on an ancillary note, Alma asks, have you ever been seriously tempted to cut your hair? No, never. I've had this hair since I was 13 years old, so it's been 23 years of long hair. Never had kind of short hair in the interim. I cut the tops off every couple of months, but I do very, very little to maintain it. This is just what happens when I don't cut my hair. And as to being tempted to cut it, no. I mean, I've gone through promotions and business and you know, got married and all that stuff, and through it all, I've never kind of felt the need to change who I am. And I would say that if you need to change who you are to feel better about yourself, then go ahead and do that. But feeling pressured, like I know some people in the metal community have kind of felt pressured as they get older and as they get responsible and they get kids and they get, you know, married and so on. They've kind of felt the pressure to cut the hair off, and I never have. It's part of who I am. And one of these days, I'm going to start looking like Devin Townsend did with the skullet. And when that day comes, I hope some of you will have the intestinal fortitude to say, cut that stuff off, man, because I'm not sure I will. But when that day comes, then we'll think about it. Thank you so much for asking questions, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.